I was in Lee Sewer. And no, I travel all over Minnesota. I am a Minnesota photographer. I am a storyteller. I'm a historian. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. Why barns? How many love barns? Really? Oh, I have fallen in love with this subject years ago. And as I've traveled around Minnesota, I have really made a point to find and photograph as many barns as I can. And I have a lot more to go, but I'm probably up over 3,000 now in my photo collection of Minnesota barns. And I'm going to show them all to you today. No, I would not do that to you. Some of you are going, looking at your watches already. But we're going to have a lot of fun as we talk about barns and reminisce about the story of barns. I grew up here in Minnesota. I grew up in Anoka. We didn't grow up on a farm, although my dad had a big enough garden. I think he thought we were farmers. How many had a dad that made you weed? Yeah, so you know what that's all about, right? But we're going to travel around the state and we're going to look at barns. How many have seen my book called Barns in Minnesota? I want to give one of these away. Ward, I didn't tell you that. Cam, can we give one of these away? But maybe let's not do the drawing. Let's do it differently. I want to give this to our senior here today, whoever that is. Whoever is our youngest senior, oldest person here today. I don't like to call you old, but I want to give it to the person that is the oldest person in the room today. I love our seniors, and I think we can learn a lot, and I've learned a ton from our seniors. So who is our senior? What year were you born?
1926.
Anybody born before 1926? What year?
1923.
1923. Anybody before 1923? What is your name, my friend?
Keith Davis.
Keith. It's an honor to meet you. 1923.
Have many fun.
There you go, my friend. Absolutely. Warren G. Harding is president of Keith. Isn't that cool to think?
I think we should.
You missed it by 3 years. You were really close.
I think we should do a drawing for, or get one for the youngest one here too today.
I bet you're in that range. Right? Well, we're going to have some fun. Over the past 20 years full-time, I have been a photographer in Minnesota. When I go out to take pictures, yes, I want to compose a good shot. That's what you like to do. But I'm more interested in the story related to what I'm photographing. How many, if you are honest with me at home, have a shoebox stuffed under the bed or maybe in a closet somewhere with old photographs in it? And over the years, you've been meaning to get those in photo albums, haven't you? Time never allows that to happen, it seems. And occasionally, you'll be cleaning under the bed. Some of you very occasionally. And you'll pull that box out, and you'll set that box out on the bed or the nightstand, and you'll flip the lid of that shoebox, and there'll be an old black and white photo staring back at you. And you look at it for a minute, you pick it up, and you say to yourself, I should know who's in this picture. I should know what event this is captured, when it was taken. But you look at it, and nothing comes to mind. You've forgotten, haven't you? But you don't worry, because you know what? You're going to flip that picture over on the back side of that photo, and someone took the time to write this great story on the back, right? 9 out of 10 times, what do you find on the back of that old picture? Absolutely nothing. What you have is a photograph. No one will argue with you. But what have you lost?
History.
The story. The story is gone. And history is about stories. I think your director, Camp, she'll agree with me that history is about stories, isn't it? So when I take pictures, I'm looking for stories. So today we're going to tell a story about barns. Where did the word barn come from? Does anyone know how we came up with this word, barn? Look at all the barns from your county, all the townships represented here. Where'd that word come from? You know, don't you?
No, I don't. I said, let's Google it.
Let's Google it. It's an Anglo-Saxon word, and it's part of two words, barley and urn. A container for grain. That's where the word barn comes from. But barns, we use it in our language all the time, don't we? How many have heard these phrases? Oh, last night's basketball was a barn burner. What does that have to do with basketball? Other than you could have played barn basketball, I suppose. But how about this one? Couldn't hit a broadside of a barn. That's a guy that can't pitch the baseball team. But my favorite, my mom used to say it all to me all the time. What, were you born in a barn? I said, Mom, you should know. I mean, when your mother asks you if you were born in a barn, you just put her back on her. But that has something to do with manners, doesn't it? Where are your manners? Were you born in a barn? I love it when people ask me if I was born in. That's an endearing thing now because I love barns. So the book comes out, Barns in Minnesota. And fortunately, and I'm bragging a little bit here, so I apologize for that, but it won a Minnesota Book Award. And I took all the pictures in the book, but more than that, the book is so good because Will Weaver, who I worked with, wrote the story. How many have read Barns in Minnesota? One person. Alan and Karen. Do you not know how to read? No, I'm joking. Of course you know how to read. Pick up the book at your local library or get one from me today, but you'll love the story. It's about one farm family. You follow their life for 70 years. And I'm not going to read the book to you, but I am going to read the opening page of the chapter. It's about one farm family, Emmett and Clara Anderson. How's that for a good Minnesota name? Anybody here by the name of Anderson? You have any Andersons in the room? Oh, they're over in Glenwood. Okay, I get it. Okay. Emmett and Clara Anderson arrive in north central Minnesota on the train. They have brought from Iowa 10 Doric sows, some cast-off farm implements, and a few household things, and their two small children. Joseph is 2, and Emma's a baby. Land is still available and cheap this far north. The soil is sandy, nothing like the heavy, dark Iowa earth of Clara's father's farm. But here they will at least have their own place. On this, they've agreed. Again, it's 1924. At the side of the farmstead and its dumpy log buildings, Clara cries and turns away. The house is an old log cabin. Emmett, though, has described it in somewhat nicer terms. How can we ever, Clara says, her voice breaks. Later in the chapter, actually 2 years later in the story, Emmett and Clara are talking again. Clara says, I thought we would build the house first. She's now around with her third child, a summer birth. She's been silent for days. You said a couple of years, that's what you said. And suddenly she cries and turns away again. Emmett is caught off guard. He can't understand this. He has a plan. His hogs are paying the bills, and he has 60 of them now. Pork prices are up. It's all working. But now this with Clara. A barn will build the house sooner than the house will build the barn, he says. He should go to her, take her in his arms, but he does not. He fears he will put off building his barn. Back home, at least we lived in a decent house, Clara says. We will soon, Emmett says, I promise. But first, the barn. How many know that story? Do you think Clara gets her own house? You gotta read the book. We can go ahead and get these lights a little bit more. If you can turn them down a little bit, you might see it and enjoy the pictures a little bit more. I put this picture on the screen just to show you something as we were turning on the projector. But I like round barns, and we'll talk about round barns a little bit in the program today, a little bit later. Where do I find the barns that I find in Minnesota? I get on my favorite road in the state. How many have a favorite road in Minnesota? Anybody have a favorite road? Raise your hand if you have a favorite road. Where's your favorite road, my friend? I like that, the one to the home place. I love that. I asked that question to a group in the cities, and the fella answered it. He said, the road home from work was his favorite road. But I'm going to take you on my favorite road in Minnesota, and I imagine many of you have traveled on this particular road. How many have seen this road in Minnesota? When I see a road that says I will be at risk, guess what? I'm going to find the best barns on those roads. Travel at your own risk. Imagine you have a few of these roads in Stevens County. Have you ever heard the phrase, seen one barn, seen them all? Is that a true statement? Are all barns alike? You know, barns tell a story, and they tell a chronological story of the agricultural practices in Minnesota. So let's go back to the earliest style of barn that you will find on the landscape in Minnesota. And you might have one or two of these in Stevens County, but imagine you don't have any barns that date back to the 1860s. I could be wrong. Any barns that get that old? Anybody know? But these are the oldest barns, and you'll find them in the oldest areas of Minnesota. These barns were used for one particular crop mainly, because they have a unique name. They were called a threshing barn. We've all heard the word threshing, right? Have you heard the word thrashing? What's the difference between threshing and thrashing? If you didn't get the threshing done, you got a thrashing.